glad to see this good turnout here tonight. Ken Upmall and his team are going to go over this this project. This is what they call a 502 hearing. And just to give you a little history on this project, this kind of really started from the town and the Wyndham Regional. And there was an interest to see if some improvements could be made on Putney Road. There's always been, and there still is, concerns on Putney Road with traffic movements, pedestrians, bicycles, et cetera, et cetera. So a committee was formed, and they spent quite a bit of time. It was a few years. And some of the faces I see here were involved even back then. So what that committee did is we had all kinds of public hearings, and then the process came before the select board. Then the select board had several meetings on it and discussed, you know, this proposal of these roundabouts and other features on Putney Road. And then eventually the board voted to accept the concept. So then the concept went to our fine friends at the state. Ken Upmall is going to go over the project. And so time has gone by, and here we are now to revisit, to actually have another discussion on where we want to go with this project. And there's a big time span here too. This isn't something that, if a decision was made today, that would happen. It'd be years from now. These projects move pretty slowly. So this is looking into the future. There's going to be a lot of concerns. People have seen some of the maps. There's property. There's all kinds of issues that come along with it. Businesses, impact on businesses. So it's a really big nut. But that's why we're here. We're here to discuss it. We're here to go over the project. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ken so he can introduce his design team, and we can have a good discussion on this.
Well, you speak up. Again, my name is Ken Upmall. I'm the project manager for the Highway Safety and Design, Roadway Design section of the Agency of Transportation. With me tonight is Brandon McAdams, one of my senior engineers, and Amos Kempton, another one of my engineers on my staff. Tonight's meeting here is a 502 hearing mandated under state statute. But what we're going to do tonight is we're going to open up the first half hour from 6 to 6:30. This is really an informal open forum for people to ask any questions they want with regards to the project and the engineering of it, the potential significant impacts to properties, concerns. You know, the real purpose of the 502 hearing is to solicit input from the community as we move forward with the project. We have gone through an extensive scoping phase of this project that took about two years to develop, and that scoping of that project was accepted by the select board in 2008. We've had a few delays in the last few years, some reevaluation of it. We actually developed the conceptual plans for the project, distributed that for review, and at this point we're ready for the 502 hearing. But let me just make a few bulleted points here tonight. Tonight is not a forum under which we are going to make commitments to anybody about concerns that they have. This is really to solicit input from the public for your suggestions and your concerns. So we're going to have the open forum, and then at 6:30 we'll begin the formal 502 hearing protocol. I will read from a script, and then we'll open up again for Brandon and Amos to ask any questions and zoom in on any specific impacts people may want to talk about. But that's the purpose of the meeting tonight, so I don't want the meeting to get off track and go off on tangents, because we pretty much follow a script for the purposes of this meeting. Let me explain one more bullet. I've had some questions in phone calls in the last few weeks about where we are in the project and where we're going, and is this the last time for people to comment and provide comments or express their concerns? And the answer is absolutely not. We're at the beginning of the project. We have a conceptual design, and in front of us we are going to, after tonight's meeting, and we'll be moving forward with developing the preliminary plans and all the fundamental engineering components of the project, stormwater design, moving forward with permit acquisitions, et cetera, the real nuts and bolts of the design. And then we will have independent property owner meetings with all the abutting properties on the project to talk about, and we'll come out in the daytime or whenever they want to meet us, and we will talk about specific concerns to their specific property on site, whatever's necessary. And then we will revise the preliminary plans as a result of those property owner meetings to address the concerns of the public. And because of the magnitude of the project, being over 10 acres, we are under Act 250 mandate. So we will have an extensive Act 250 permitting process. And that will have all kinds of criteria, and there's another public participation component of that. And then after we get done the Act 250 process, we will be moving forward with finalizing the design in order to draft the actual right-of-way plans and all the specific easements necessary to build the project. And then we will actually have to go through a formal necessity proceeding, a necessity hearing through the courts on any conflicts we have with properties there. So there is there's a large window of opportunity from this point on to collectively work with property owners, abutters, or interested parties to resolve issues that anybody may have. So don't think tonight it's all over. If somebody didn't show, they can't provide concerns. We're at the beginning, folks. We're not at the end. Okay? So with that, why don't we open up the open forum? And first, let me introduce Brandon McAdams. And Brandon, why don't you come up and address any concerns, specific concerns with any of the parcels or any questions in this open forum?
I don't know if you guys want to come up to the mic and. Brandon. I can see you.
My name is James Van Slavin, District 2, and I just have a question. Can I approach the map?
Sure.
Right here, when I walk, there's no sidewalk there.
Correct.
And it drops really deep. I don't know how far, but it's like a cliff. Is there going to be a sidewalk there for us pedestrians to walk back and forth?
Yep, we actually have sidewalk proposed from the southern end of the project down here, beginning at the West River Bridge, all the way until the end of our construction. There will be sidewalk. The sidewalk will only be located on the western side of the road until we reach about where the Chittenden Bank area is, down in here, about 700 feet south where you can see that first roundabout. Then we'll have sidewalks on both sides of the road. So that is one of the goals of this project, will be to improve mobility for pedestrians.
Wow,
By having
safety.
sidewalk through there. Yep.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Please come on up.
Scott Borofsky, lived in Brattleboro most of my life. I read the newspaper article. I followed some of the preparations for this. And no one that I've spoken to, or in the article, anywhere did I see, and nowhere can I seem to find the reasons why to do this. For a $10 million plus project that's going to make coming in and out of town by that way very difficult for many years when it starts, right? Am I right? It's going
Are
to
you
be
speaking
traffic
to-
tie-ups all the time for not months, but probably even years out there. Is that right? And now we already have a problem getting into town from the other direction. So most people that I know from town don't even bother trying to come in from Canal Street anymore, because a lot of times you have traffic tied up even way past Elm. In just normal times of the day, you can have traffic tied up all the way up to around Clark Street. Can't get through on that side of town. If you do this, where do you get through? On the river? I don't know. Route 9? How do you get into town? How do you get out of town? This road provides a way to go and come from Brattleboro downtown quickly, 40 miles an hour, in and out. And it services all the businesses which have to do with people moving around quickly in their cars. McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, I like Dunkin' Donuts. All these businesses, I mean, every town in the United States had to develop an area on the town like this. So now you're saying, okay, we're going to have to stop 4 times going through there and go around a circle, which a lot of people that I know in this part of the country, they didn't grow up in the city, they're not used to roundabouts. They don't like them. You know, I know one woman that got on a roundabout with me down in Greenfield, and well, she said, oh my God, she started to panic. And, you know, I figured if I kept her on it for 2-3 times around, I could calm her down and we just sort of figure out where we were going to get. No, she had to get off now. 3 times around, and we would have got off at the building down at the retreat up here. But she couldn't handle it, you know. It's not the city here. And these roundabouts seem to imply that it's going to be. And I haven't heard any reason why to disrupt this town and change the way things flow and spend millions and millions of dollars. The best reason I've heard so far was the sidewalk idea. Put in a sidewalk on Putney Road. That would make a lot of sense. But people around here used to say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And this town is in such need of fixing things that are broken here. If there is some developers behind this and they want to put in neighborhoods there, which is the only thing I've heard, some rumor of possibility, which actually makes sense, then who's going to provide the extra fire truck? Who's going to provide the extra police officers? Where you got one guy working up there now who's great on Putney Road, stopping people that are getting out of hand. Stopped me once. We had a talk. I think the guy's great. I want him out there. People in this town don't bother with the stop signs anymore. I've seen people go right through stoplights as if they weren't even there.
Can I interject for 1 minute here before we get on too long a question? I mean,
The question is one word.
Okay, yeah. I
Why? Tell me, please, give me
Yeah,
3 or
why don't
4
you explain the
reasons
safety
which are
mobility?
so important that all these things that work well, that are going to end, that are going to stop, the nature of the town plan, all this money, all this inconvenience. What have you got that's so important that we have to go through this and spend all this money?
One of the biggest reasons that we're going through this is that right now this corridor is an extremely high crash corridor. This corridor sees a lot more crashes than most other corridors in the state, and crashes that are resulting in injuries. That's one of the reasons for putting in the roundabouts. They're traffic calming devices. They force people to slow down at these intersections. They don't force people to necessarily stop. So we'd be eliminating stop conditions throughout the corridor. Where now, of course, during peak hour out here on this corridor, we see lots of traffic backing up. This should improve that scenario, even though when you look at it, you might not quite get why or how. But the fact that cars would not have to stop to enter the roundabout and do not have to stop to exit the roundabout helps that out. One of the big purposes for this project is to improve mobility for both vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians throughout the corridor. We're attempting to lessen the number of collisions that we see on the road. We're attempting to improve mobility. Level of service for the intersections here would be greatly increased, as well as level of service for the driveways. We're seeing a lot of side swipes from conflicting left turn movements. We're also seeing lots of rear ends from people stopping to make a left-hand turn and having to wait for long periods of time before they can cut across 2 to possibly 3 lanes of traffic in places where we have turn lanes to enter drives.
Aren't the roundabouts also causing accidents?
The roundabouts, people do get into accidents at roundabouts, but as of yet, the existing roundabout here has not seen a single injury resulting from one of those accidents since it's been there. It's not going to eliminate accidents, but it is going to lessen the severity of those accidents due to the decreased speed, which people are traveling when they go through these roundabouts. You're not going to see people running these roundabouts like you would see them run through a red light, for instance, at full speed. Also, the angle of the collisions that you see more sideswipe collisions, not necessarily T-bones and collisions that result in higher injuries. So that's really what we're trying to achieve here. Is we're trying to increase mobility for both. For
It sounds like you have to do this because the police can't stop people from going through the stop sign. That's ridiculous.
Let me just jump in, since I've got such extensive experience with this project, and just add a few things to what Brandon McAdams said. That road out there right now doesn't have any sidewalks. Very few. There's a few sidewalks up the north, so there's no real pedestrian mobility or bicycle mobility out there right now. In addition, there's areas of pavement where there's over 50 to 60 feet of pavement to cross. So there's no room for pedestrians to get across the street, and certainly there's no designated crosswalks. So you have major issues out there with pedestrian and bicycle traffic, and that was one of the town's biggest concerns when we started this. And you have level of service, which is an indicator of flow of traffic in and out of parking spaces, in and out of accesses right now that are at E and F, which is, not really acceptable. And some people say, I heard a mention of, it's going to slow traffic down. And level of service out there right now is, I think, C. And with the roundabout and all the modeling that we've done, the level of service on all those intersections along the entire corridor will be level of service A. So this design significantly should reduce accidents.
You have to go through F to get to A.
Well, it's a very broad range, but F is real bad.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be while construction's going on, right?
Well, there's always sacrifices that have to be made during the construction of a project. That's just part. If you've got to go in there and reconstruct the roadway, that's inevitable. There's going to be traffic issues during construction.
Yeah.
But in the end, this project that we developed in close coordination with the town representatives not only will improve safety, improve pedestrian and bicycle mobility, improve mobility for the traveling public, and also enhance the visual corridor for the redevelopment of the project with all the trees and the landscaping. That's one thing that we really looked at when we tried to develop this. We wanted to make this an attractive corridor. I think that's what the town wants. Right now you go out there and we've seen pictures as transportation engineers of all kinds of communities with all kinds of power lines and open expanses of pavement and no grass, and it's a commercial corridor.
Are you expecting neighborhoods in this, after this happens?
Well, that would be part of the town's long-range 50-year plan. But I'll mention one more thing. In developing this project, we tried to interface this project closely with the town's accepted 50-year master plan and working with the Putney Road Association. And when you actually, in the scoping report, when you overlaid this design over the town's illustrations of their 50-year plan, they were almost identical. So what we've come up with here was an extensive coordination with the town over a long period of time, months, and a lot of effort through all the local concerns and alternatives presentation and the select board meetings that we had to come up with what we have now. So I think saying that it's going to slow traffic down and it's going to not enhance the real issues of safety and all mobility, I think the project really satisfies all those issues.
I disagree. I don't think that it does enhance safety. I think you got just as many problems in the roundabouts as you will in the way it is now. And I don't think it'll make it quicker. Going through 4 roundabouts is going to slow everybody down, no matter how you look at it. And what are you going to do with all the people that are trying to get back and forth from work at the beginning or the end of the day? Where do they go? And where are you going to move, all this stuff when you change this development? Where do all these businesses and all this stuff go? That's a place there. in the past, the magic word was growth, but now the magic word is sustainability. And who knows what's going to happen in this country? At one point, everyone developed their town to have a strip with all these businesses and all that stuff. Things are going to change in this country, and nobody knows exactly how yet. And if you take this and you start to make it go in a certain direction, where are you going to have to do that change when it comes? What's the hurry on this? Why can't this $10 million, it just doesn't seem to make sense for these little changes. It's a little bit safer. Now we have a sidewalk. Now we have crosswalks. You can do that without putting in 4 roundabouts.
Let me just
Still
address
doesn't make sense to me.
address a few things. I really appreciate your concerns, and we recorded those, but I want to let others have a chance to talk. But I want to address one issue, and maybe contrary to what you said, but you know, there were in the last 5 years there were 182 collisions out there on that roadway, and there were 40 injuries resulting. And by doing the design, the divided highway with the roundabouts that we have, we should reduce that to significantly. There shouldn't be 40. I mean, I would be surprised if
What
you.
percentage do you think the reduction will be?
If we're talking reduction in injuries resulting from collisions, I think
No,
that the
the
roundabout there is a good model that shows that we haven't had any since its construction. No injuries
So
have
you
resulted.
don't want to commit yourself to any kind of a percentage statement and how it's going to be improved for your project?
No.
I think the design of the roundabout at the Keene intersection is proven. It was built, well, I worked on that project when I came to the agency 20 years ago. That actually was one of my first designs. And there was a lot of concerns over that roundabout. I remember going through all the public meetings. And since this construction of that roundabout, there's been 0 injuries resulting at that roundabout. So I'm just going to leave it at that and appreciate your concerns, but those are the facts of what's been built out there with roundabouts, and that's the real premise behind roundabouts. It's not that you end all minor fender benders or bumps, but you eliminate injuries because you lower the speed through the actual roundabout.
It's kind of an experiment, right?
No, that's not. That's proven fact. With that, I'm going to open the floor up to anybody else who wants to ask a question.
I'm Mark Zeider. I live in Putney and I commute south of Brattleboro every day on a bicycle. You mentioned a couple of times that it's going to increase bike mobility, but when I look at the picture there, I don't see it. Could you explain to me where
Sure.
the bike lanes are?
Yeah, and that could be kind of hard to see. We just got pavement markings shown here on the actual layout. They're kind of small. It's not very big and super blown up. We're restricted by the size of our paper. But the 5-foot shoulders on both sides of the road are designated bike paths as well. So there would be shared use paths they will have bike stencils painted in them, and they are to be used as bike paths. As you approach each roundabout, there's an area where the bikes ramp up actually onto the sidewalk because it's not safe for bikes to enter the roundabout. We want to keep bikes out of the roundabout. So at that point, bikes will ramp up onto the sidewalk, which in between roundabouts is 6 feet wide for pedestrians, but around roundabouts will be 10 feet wide to accommodate both cyclists and pedestrians. And then once you've traveled around the roundabout, there'll be another ramp down where you go back down onto the 5-foot shoulder.
So when you go around a roundabout, you ramp up onto the sidewalk.
Correct.
And then you have to cross the traffic to get.
No,
Because
so
right
you-
now, I ride through the roundabout that's there. It's no problem.
Right.
It's actually, I'm more mobile than a car.
Right,
But
which
I'm
is a
not
good
sure
point.
how do you get around these?
So it's hard to see from there, but there's a little ramp up here that would put you on the sidewalk, and you would come right here to the side street, which is one of the legs of the roundabout. If needed, you would wait, but cars should yield to you in the crosswalk. You would cross here, back onto the sidewalk, and back down onto the shoulder.
This is typical of all roundabout design nationally, interacting with pedestrian and bicycle traffic. This is the way it works, and it's proven it works well.
You said those lanes were multi-use?
Right, they're referred to as multi-use because it is still also an active roadway shoulder, which is not to be traveled in. It's not a travel way, but a car, if it breaks down, could be pushed over into that shoulder. It's there also for the use of vehicles as well, but not for travel.
Not for pedestrians.
Not for pedestrians. Pedestrians should stay on the sidewalk. Correct.
What's going to happen with the power lines and the traffic or the street lights?
That's a very good question. With the widening of the road that's going on here, which actually, even though it might look like it's getting a lot wider, at a lot of places it's really not. There's such large swaths of pavement that are out there now that are just open. We could afford to cut things down to 4 lanes and put an 8-foot median in the middle and still have essentially the same pavement footprint. But we will most likely have to relocate lots of those aerial utilities, if not all of the poles. We haven't quite gotten to that portion of the design yet, as this is still conceptual, but that will come, during the next phase of design. We'll have to evaluate exactly what's out there for utilities and exactly where they'll have to be moved. But it's a good bet to assume that, yes, aerial utilities are going to have to be pushed further out.
It wouldn't be going underground?
No.
No. Anyone else?
Just wondering, were full traffic studies done of Putney Road as part of the criteria to go forward
Yes.
with this project? And I'm just curious as to how much time was spent doing the traffic studies.
There were full traffic studies done throughout the corridor, at all intersections and some drives. I couldn't say exactly how long. Maybe Kim could speak better to that. This all happened before I actually came on board at VTrans, but I have looked at them, and there were extensive traffic studies done throughout the corridor.
And based on that information, that too.
That's what developed the criteria for the geometry of the project.
Can people please address who you are so that we can have it for the record? It's helpful.
Okay,
Just
sorry. My name is Scott Knickerbocker. I'm a resident of Brattleboro. I've actually lived off of Putney Road as well for the past 20 years.
Thank you. And just another reminder, new people have come in. There is a sign-up sheet here, and there's also some information up front if anybody would like it.
Right. Yeah. Please step forward.
Hi, I'm Adam Hubbard, resident of Brattleboro, and I did some work on the master plan. And I would like to say I'm excited about this. I think it would be a real asset to Putney Road. I have a few comments and questions or suggestions. I think I'd like to see, and maybe you can say if it's possible, is mid-block crosswalks, because I know crossing the current roundabout as a pedestrian is a little tricky because drivers are pretty focused on what's approaching. So I think mid-block crosswalks. I would also suggest that you add the utilities to the plan so that we know what's coming. I think they have a pretty significant impact. I'd also like commitment to the trees. I think having the trees is a really nice asset, but it often shows up in plan and then kind of gets trimmed out through the budgeting process. So it'd be nice to have that committed all the way through. One thing from the town's point of view, I think it means probably adding a sidewalk plow, and I think that's just important for the community to know. The other suggestion I have is sort of blowing up sections of these and getting them out to the property owners out there. So one of the patterns in our town is somewhere down the road somebody says, I had no idea, and we start the process all over again. And so
We'll actually be, again, I understand the detail that people want to see, but this really is the conceptual design for the project at this stage in development. As we complete preliminary plans, all those details will be clearly outlined on the plans and clearly shown to all the properties during the property owner visit portion of the project.
and the last comment is just to the general public, and that is that the traditional concept of road design is really evolving, and this kind of represents where that's going in terms of, I think the lanes might be all tightened up a little bit, but this is forward thinking, and this really will improve traffic and property values on Putney Road. So, thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward, sir.
My name is Michael Bean. I'm Chief Operating Officer for Sandry Companies. We own the Sunoco station that I think you can see the obvious reasons. We're a little concerned about that, and we'll have a serious impact, but I'm not going to talk about that in the general public. We'll talk about that privately. I was interested in this gentleman's statistics about the current roundabout, because we happen to have had a couple of accidents with our fleet in that roundabout. And you talked about injuries, but you didn't talk about accidents. Do you have any data on the number of accidents before, at that intersection, before the roundabout was installed and after the roundabout?
I'm pretty sure we have those records in our traffic research section, but I don't have that data with me tonight.
Do you have a suspicion of it?
I know there's been accidents out there since the roundabout's been built, but the primary purpose of the roundabouts, we knew we were going to have additional accidents, but the prevention of injuries resulting. And it's my understanding that there's been no injuries resulting from the minor accidents that have occurred out there since we built it.
But you seem to be saying that you do expect more accidents to occur?
That we expect more accidents, but we don't expect any injuries.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Please, ma'am.
My name is Dorothy Vandermeulen, and I live on Wantasticlet Drive. That drive, that street comes out onto Putney Road just south of the bridge on West River. And because I live just off of that section of Putney Road, I'm very concerned about whether there has been any thought given to the impact of what you're doing here, here on traffic going south. I find, and a lot of my friends who live along there are very concerned about the traffic that, it's impossible to cross the street as a pedestrian. It's also very difficult for cars to make left-hand turns because of traffic. You live for traffic lights in the downtown section and up here, just so that there are breaks so that you can get across that street safely. It is not pedestrian friendly, and it is a traffic hazard. Has there been any study or any real concern about the effects of this unending traffic, because there's no traffic lights to stop traffic, especially during the rush hour on Putney Road, south of the bridge?
As far as I know, we have not really looked into that. I can speak a little bit to what you're saying there, and I understand your concern with that. I would say that you're probably going to be able to expect to see fewer breaks in traffic during peak hour coming across the bridge without traffic lights. But that's not really something that we're in a position to address because that area falls outside of our project limits. If it wasn't inside of our project limits, then maybe that's something that we could address by trying to put some sort of thing into action to calm traffic down on the other side of the bridge, but that's really not within the scope of this project or within the limits of this project.
And you don't know if the town has even thought about this, or
I'm not.
any talk about it?
I'm not aware.
Okay, thank
We
you.
have traffic data for design hourly volume and vehicles per day, and I'm not sure that the development of the project is going to increase the number of vehicles that go through there in a certain day.
And that's not my concern. My concern is about traffic, being able to cross traffic safely, being safe for pedestrians.
I think that's something that we, at this point on, should look at and take into consideration in the design of the project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, let's go
Can I
ahead.
say something? I'm Dennis Smith.
No, please do. We'll make this our last comment before we go ahead and start the formal.
I'm Dennis Smith. I own the Velodrome in Marina. I'm kind of in the same situation that you are with Wantasticlet. If there is no traffic lights stopping, giving a break, there's no way in and out of the marina or in and out of the Velodrome if the traffic is.
I can't hear you. In and out of the.
The Velodrome.
Okay.
So the number of cars going in and out of the marina and all those buildings down there and in and out of the Velodrome, the only way they get out now is because there are traffic lights. So there are breaks in the traffic. But with no break in the traffic, it's going to put us and Scott in the same situation that you're in.
Seems to project that there'll be more injuries from people getting hit by cars outside of the project zone as a result of a few less injuries in the roundabouts.
All right, well, I think that'll conclude our open forum.
We'll turn this back over to Brandon, and we'll take more questions from the audience.
Before Kim begins, I just want to reiterate that there is a sign-up sheet over on the table, as well as some information for anyone who's just getting in. If you don't mind, please sign in. Thank you.
Good evening. I would like to bring this hearing to order. My name is Ken Upmall, and I'm a project manager with the Vermont Agency of Transportation, and will be moderating this Section 502 hearing for the Brattleboro STP 2000 (23) project. This hearing is referred to as a 502 hearing. A 502 hearing is part of the design phase of a project. The hearing is required under Section 502, Title 19 of the Vermont State Statute annotated, because certain lands and rights within the town of Brattleboro may be affected and their acquisition may be necessary for the project. It is a meeting to describe the proposed project, the design under consideration, and to receive your comments, suggestions, and recommendations. The agency will consider all comments received, either oral or in writing, prior to advancing the design of the project or initiating proceedings to acquire any additional lands or rights. The agency will conduct a meeting to review the comments and discussion of this hearing and intends to report to the town select board within 30 days on the status of this project. Copies of the transcript of the meeting can be requested by contacting us at the address provided on the back of the hearing handout. They are usually available within 2 weeks from the hearing date. There are hearing handouts available that more fully describe the purpose of a 502 hearing and the project alternative under consideration. If you do not have one and would like one, please let us know. All information developed in conjunction with this project is available to the public for inspection and copying at the Highway Safety and Design section of the Agency of Transportation in Montpelier. The mailing address is included on the back of the hearing handout. There is also an attendance sheet. Please be sure to sign this sheet so that we have a record of who was here tonight. Project description. Our hearing tonight concerns the project, which involves full-depth reconstruction of U.S. Route 5 from the northern end of the West River Bridge to the southern end of the bridge over Crosby Brook, just south of the existing Keene intersection roundabout. Purpose of this project is to improve safety and mobility for motorists, pedestrians, and bicyclists, as well as address capacity issues within the Putney Road corridor from the West River to the Exit 3 roundabout. The proposed work includes full-depth reconstruction of the existing roadway, construction of 4 roundabouts, 3 with a 175-foot radius and 1 with a radius of 152 feet. The newly constructed roadway will be 2 lanes at the southern end of the project, which will be comprised of 2 12-foot lanes, 2 5-foot shared use bike lanes, and a 6-foot sidewalk. The majority of the reconstructed roadway will be 4 lanes comprised of 4 12-foot lanes, 2 shared use bike lanes, and 2 6-foot sidewalks. This project will also include new drainage structures, signs, and landscaping. Now I would like to introduce the following people to you. From the Agency of Transportation, Brandon McAdams and Amos Kempton. Is there anybody here from the State Transportation Board tonight? Tonight we are going to hear primarily from Brandon McAdams, who will shortly tell you about the work to date and what is proposed at this time. After his presentation, we will open the floor to questions or comments about the project. Before we begin, I need to make more preliminary comments. We are using a court reporter to take a transcription of the hearing. When you make a comment or ask a question, please identify yourself and your affiliation for the record. Please speak loudly enough so that the court reporter and all the room can hear you. Written comments are encouraged and will be included as part of the formal record of this hearing. Page 5 in the handout is a form which you can use. Please fill it out and send it in within 10 days of this hearing. The agency's mailing address is on the form. We have already had an informal comment session earlier this evening from 6 to 6:30 p.m. Comments that were recorded by the court reporter during that session will also be considered as part of the record. As stated earlier, this project may affect some of the adjoining properties. For your information concerning right-of-way issues, we are providing some information about the procedures which are mandated under the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Land Acquisition Policies Act of 1970. Excuse me. Parentheses, Public Law 91-646. There are acquisition procedures and relocation brochures available. Please see from the right-of-way section of the agency who is here tonight with any questions you may have. That gentleman here at Petros was not here tonight. If you have any specific questions in reference to that, we'll take those questions. You may also contact Rob White from the Agency of Transportation at the phone number and address on page 4 of the hearing handout. Now I have a statement concerning environmental impacts. Under the National Environmental Policy Act, parentheses NEPA, the Vermont Agency of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration are responsible for determining the environmental impact resulting from this project. This will be done with consideration given to such issues as historic resources, archaeological sites, wildlife habitat, wetlands, agricultural land, land use and social impacts, air quality, noise impacts, floodplains, hazardous waste, and water quality. The least environmentally damaging practical alternative has been considered during the scoping process. No significant environmental impacts are anticipated for this project, and for this reason, VTrans anticipates recommending to the Federal Highway Administration that this project is to be classed as a categorical exclusion. Now for the technical presentation of the project, I will turn the meeting over to Brandon McAdams.
All right, thank you, Ken. So for this portion of the presentation, I'm just going to kind of move over this way toward the roll and just kind of walk you through the project to start off with. So the project will begin on the northern end of the West River Bridge, and we'll move northerly along US 5. Initially, we will have, as Ken stated, 2 12-foot lanes with 2 5-foot shared use shoulders. Those shoulders will be shared use between vehicles and cyclists. But of course, these are not travel ways, so they're not to be traveled on by vehicles unless in cases of emergency vehicles, breakdowns, things of that nature. That will continue north past Town Crier Drive into the first roundabout. But before we come to the first roundabout, we will begin a raised median, which will eliminate left-hand turns and force all driveways to become right in, right out, therefore eliminating all left-hand turning movement conflicts where we're seeing a lot of crashes resulting from those, both in terms of rear-end collisions and side swipes from cars crossing in front of other cars. So we move into the first roundabout. We'll be at Noah's Lane and the Sandry station there on the corner. And then continue north to the second roundabout, which will be located at Technology Drive and Landmark Hill Drive. From there, we'll continue north. Chickering Drive will not have a roundabout there, so anyone exiting from Chickering Drive and wanting to go north will have to make a right-hand turn headed in the southerly direction, come back down to this next roundabout, which is maybe 400 to 600 feet south of there, do a U-turn in the roundabout, and then continue north, as will anyone exiting any drive in between the roundabouts. We continue then to the next roundabout, which would be the third roundabout and is located at the Hannaford's Drive. From there, we continue north to the fourth roundabout, which is located at Black Mountain Drive and only has 3 legs. So there will not be a 4th leg entering that roundabout. You'll have Putney Road north and south entering, and you will have Black Mountain Road entering. I'll talk a little bit about the purpose and need for this project, as I know we've kind of gotten into a little bit already. And really, the reason for this project is to try to limit the amount of injury resulting crashes that we see along the corridor. We're trying to improve mobility for pedestrians, cyclists, as well as vehicles. Currently out there now, we see large traffic backups, especially during peak hour. It can get pretty hectic out there. So this is supposed to increase mobility by allowing traffic to flow more freely. We're eliminating all stop conditions throughout the corridor. Therefore, unless you could possibly have to come to a stop at a roundabout, but that is considered a yield condition, because if the roundabout is open and you can safely enter the roundabout, there is no reason to stop. They are traffic calming devices, which due to the geometry of them will wind up causing you to have to slow down, hopefully to a speed somewhere around 25 miles an hour to safely enter the roundabout and exit the roundabout. We are adding sidewalks throughout the entire corridor, where currently pretty much none exist. I think there's some up in the north end around Hannaford's, and maybe on the opposite side of the street around the McDonald's area there. But we will be adding sidewalks throughout the entire length of the project, and those will be 6 feet wide, except for, as I mentioned earlier, where we go around the roundabouts, in which case they will become shared use sidewalks that are there to accommodate both cyclists and pedestrians, and they'll be 10 feet wide at that point. Really, that's kind of all that's going on here, and that's really what's happening. We're hoping to see a very large decrease in the amount of accidents with injuries resulting. Is one of the largest reasons for this. There was a long scoping period that went into this, where VTrans partnered with both the town of Brattleboro, the Putney Road Business Association, and some other groups, and the public, of course, to come up with this plan. And it was not just kind of thrown out there. There was a long, extensive process that went into the development of this plan. And at this point, we're really just getting the conceptual design kind of finalized, and this is what we have now. There's a lot more to come, a lot more things to happen in design overall, a lot more issues to work out with conflicts with things like utilities, and of course right-of-way, which is why we're all here. I think that's really about all I have.
Thank you, Brandon. What's your name? Comments or questions?
Okay, just before we start, I actually received 2 written comments from people who weren't able to make it tonight. I don't know whether you want me, for the purposes of your procedure, to read them into the transcript or just hand them to you.
What would you like to do?
Those comments can be handed to us, and
They don't have to be read?
they don't have to be right now.
Okay, so I can just
They
make
can
sure
be
you
mailed
get
in as well.
Great.
Yes, sir.
My name is Dwight Sprague. I do not live in this town, but I do walk up there, and none of the sidewalks up there are plowed. Why do you want to make more sidewalks if you're not going to plow them? All of the sidewalks are unusable.
I'll discuss that with the district. So that's a very valid concern. Thank you.
I noticed, my name is Steve Farrington, I live here in Brattleboro. I noticed you're placing a roundabout by the Black Mountain Hill Road. That seems pretty close to the existing roundabout. Why would that be necessary? I mean, that's not very far at all. I mean, why would you need roundabouts so close together like that?
The traffic data we received warrants the inclusion of a roundabout there, and it provides, I don't know, how many feet is that, Brandon, between the next roundabout?
That's probably roughly 1,000 feet, 1,200 feet between the existing roundabout and the first roundabout as you're headed in the southerly direction.
Doesn't make sense to me. But
Yeah, the reason that roundabout is necessary there is it's either a roundabout or a signal needs to be there. I believe there's a signal there now, if I'm correct. So it's the volumes there warrant a signalized or a controlled intersection. So that's the purpose for this. It would either, if we take the roundabout out, it'd have to be a signal, and what we're going for here is a non-signalized intersection without stop conditions.
Yes, sir.
My name is Bud Waite, and I own North End Market on that roundabout. 20 years ago, you forced me to become an intersection by putting a traffic light in and 20 years later, you're eliminating me from the road. Totally.
There are a few locations along this project that have conflicts that we see at this time. And we are preparing to meet with those property owners and resolve those conflicts at those specific properties where we've identified some conflicts. And yours is the little market there by the northernmost roundabout. And,
We've been here 26 years ourselves, and been here for 50 years.
perhaps I think after the meeting's over, if you have time, we should have a little discussion about that then, and we'll be having more discussions as well. Thank you. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
The logging industry in this neighborhood is very heavy. And I wonder, are these roundabouts large enough to accommodate the double rigs that are oftentimes used on Main Street?
Yes. The roundabouts have raised medians which conform to the turning radii of large W60, WB62.
67 trucks.
67 trucks.
I think the largest truck we'll see.
So the geometry that's provided in these is adequate for that mobility. Yes, sir.
I like the sidewalks, and it's going to remove the secondary roads where people tend to not to speed on those side roads rather than the main road. What else I like about it is people may have to actually pay attention to driving than rather using their taxis. I've never seen it done before, but I like it as a pedestrian.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Couple questions. One is...
Could you just state your name?
Steve Schreiner, I'm from Brattleboro.
Thank you.
Is there any consideration for pedestrian crossing just at the very south end of the project there, just to follow up a little bit on the conversation earlier? You've got at that area there is increased pedestrian traffic now because people are accessing the West River Trail.
In close proximity to the bridge?
Just after the bridge. Is there any consideration?
On the northern end or southern end of the bridge?
Northern end.
Northern end.
If you don't have jurisdiction over the southern end,
right,
perhaps we can talk about something on the northern end.
The northern end of the bridge, we're not providing any pedestrian crossings there because there's only sidewalk on one side of the road. So we wouldn't provide pedestrian crossing because there's nowhere for them to cross to.
But there's sidewalks. Are there sidewalks going on both sides of the bridge?
Sidewalk on the West River Bridge is on the west side.
It is, okay.
And we're continuing the sidewalk all the way up through, but we're not providing sidewalk on the east side of the roadway.
Got it.
So we're continuing the existing sidewalk.
Okay. Second question is, what is the timing of this and how does that mesh with the replacement of the bridge over the West River?
I'm not sure I know the precise schedule of the West River Bridge.
2015.
2015.
For a 2-year period. And
this project will not conflict with concurrent construction activities with that project. If that project is built in 2015.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, my name is Chris Chapman. My affiliation here is as a select board member. I also ride a bicycle, Brattleboro resident, and a native of Brattleboro. I'm seeing here an opportunity to make Brattleboro a more attractive entryway by virtue of the designs here. I gather that each one of these intersections, roundabout intersections, is going to eliminate overhead lines, power lines at those intersections, and make the poles disappear. Is that right?
No, the overhead utilities are going to be relocated slightly outside where they are now.
Okay.
And that we coordinate that with the town.
Okay. I recall seeing when the existing roundabout was put in, one of the realizations I had coming to the intersection one fine day was there were no power lines crossing at that point. There's open air, and all the really ugly lines caused by lines and poles had disappeared at those particular,
Yes,
at that particular
let me rephrase
intersection.
that. We have not developed the utility relocation route at this time, and that will take place in the preliminary design phases, which we're approaching. However, I do not believe there'll be any direct crossings of the utility lines over the locations of the roundabouts.
Wonderful. I think
That's a great comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I would like to suggest that to the greatest extent possible, you make the lines go underground rather than be suspended, because it makes the landscape more attractive. As attractive as the town can be, will be advantageous long-term to the favorable development activities in the town, in my estimation. The other question and comment I had has to do with the bicycle lanes. I am a cyclist, and right now, one of the virtues of the status quo, where we have these nice new bicycle lanes, is that it really feels safe to a cyclist to travel down that lane. It's not a pedestrian way, and it allows a cyclist to really have distance from moving traffic. It allows a cyclist to go at a good clip, at a cruising clip for a cyclist down this busy highway. I, for one, feel safe using that. I'm not sure, using the shared space of a sidewalk, that there will be actually a feeling of safety by either the bicyclist or the pedestrian, and it's going to force the cyclist to travel at a much more moderate speed and slow down people who want to, those right now few people who use their cycles as commuting tools. Mr. Mark Zeiter was talking about his concern there earlier. So if you could find a way to make it possible for cyclists to use the main thoroughfare as they do now, I think that it would stand to the advantage of those who, or of the community as a whole, allowing more use of the road and more safely for pedestrians. And it would be more fun for the cyclists.
Thank you. Yes.
Tracy Slate. I live on Harris Avenue here in Brattleboro. This actually is the first time I'm hearing about this proposed plan, and excuse me, but I don't see the need for 5 rotaries within a 2-mile radius. I do agree, however, with the one down by Landmark College. That is a terrible intersection to get in and out of and does need improving. However, I don't see the difference between what you have planned here and making everything right-hand turns with a meridian in the middle, and what the impact is to people who are actually driving. And the other concern I would have would be plowing. How much more expensive is it going to be to maintain this plowing, and the salt impact on the road, expensive salt, etc. Thank you.
I'm trying to figure out which one of those questions I wanted to answer for you right off the bat. Let me just hit the safety thing real quick. And the whole premise of the project with divided V is to stop these oncoming head-ons, rear ends, people going left. Purpose of this design, without the signals, is to improve mobility, significantly improve mobility and safety. And these means, which are proven transportation means, should address those issues. Now, your second question was plowing?
Plowing.
Okay, plowing. This is a state highway. The town wouldn't be plowing this. This would be plowed by the district. Okay? Third question, salt.
That goes pretty much along with the plowing.
This project will require an extensive stormwater treatment design. It'll be implemented as part of the project. It'll be developed through the preliminary plans. And we don't know what that is at this point. We know that's a challenge, and that will need to be permitted through the agency, the stormwater quality section of the Agency of Natural Resources. And we'll coordinate that also through the town. Did you have another one?
Yes. How does this differ from, say, the 2-lane highways such as Keene, where you just eliminate the traffic lights make everything a right-hand turn, you have one rotary on each end.
I apologize, I can't address that project. I'm not familiar with it. Sir?
Hi, I'm Paul Cameron, Town Energy Coordinator, and I wanted to point out that there will be significant reductions in air pollution from this project. The final scoping report that was prepared by Vanass, Hangen, and Bruslin estimated that there would be 554,800 gallons of gasoline eliminated per year, which is the equivalent of taking 1,500 cars off the road annually. The same study estimated that also that there would be a reduction in carbon emissions of 6,935 tons per year. That's 2.75% of Brattleboro's total 2010 emissions. And just to give you some perspective, that's more than the total emissions from all town buildings and operations in a typical year. So this plan will help Brattleboro achieve one of the goals of its town plan in the energy chapter, which is to reduce CO2 emissions to 30% below 2010 levels by 2030. And of course there would be reductions in other pollutants as well as CO2. So the net result would be cleaner air because traffic will be, the flow of traffic will be improved and there'll be less idling. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes. Hey.
I'm Gary Goodemote. I'm a property owner on Putney Road, and I've been involved with this project a fair amount. One question I have, we've sort of kicked around stormwater utilities over the years. There's stormwater utility for Putney Road, and I know it's been done a little bit in the state. And I don't know if you guys have looked at, or if anybody, like the state or A&R or anybody has looked at that kind of thing in conjunction with a project like this. It seems like the time to...
Yes, at this point, I mean, we are at the conceptual phase of the project here, so that issue will be thoroughly discussed and investigated throughout the preliminary design. Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to say I have a vested interest in this being really good, so and I think it will be. I'm really excited about it. I thought I might be dead before this hearing, and I did my best.
You and me both.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Okay, please.
Yes,
please.
Becky Jones, I'm a physician here in town, and I'm a big fan of public transportation, and one of the big issues we're talking about here is traffic calming and reducing traffic. And this is such a clear commuting route from Brattleboro to north of Putney Road, and we've been working a lot on parking ride systems, and I know it stops short of that roundabout where the parking ride is on the other side of it, but there was a trolley along there once, so think about putting that in too.
A trolley.
A trolley, okay.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Dave Gardenstein. I'm a member of the Select Board, but I'm here just speaking individually. I've heard some good comments and I've heard some support for the project, but looking at the project in detail for the first time, I find it very difficult to understand the rationale for this level of a project on this corridor. It looks like this is a hugely expensive project, costing, it sounds like, in excess of $10 million. And based upon what I'm seeing, it would appear to complicate rather than simplify the traffic patterns up there. To have 5 roundabouts in this short space appears to be way over planning and over engineering this corridor, requiring only right-hand turns and making people go the opposite direction from the direction they want to go would appear to increase driver frustration rather than ease traffic conditions on the road. It would appear, and it may be possible, that initially projections and plans may have favored this sort of redevelopment, but it is difficult for me to understand, given the flat level of growth here in town, how a level of economic development or increased traffic could support this sort of investment of more than $10 million or $10 million thereabouts in this corridor to complicate the traffic pattern in this manner. What's more, the disruption to local businesses that would result, we've heard from, I think, 2 different business owners already here today, and I understand that a significant number of parking spaces would have to be taken from others. I can't see, looking at this project, how the conditions up there would support this sort of a development. So I've heard supportive comments here, but I personally, looking at this, I don't understand it at all.
Any other comments?
I'm Mike LaCroix. I'm a property owner on Putney Road. And from my perspective, I'm thrilled to see the sidewalks and the bike lanes up there, and particularly the plantings. I think the roundabouts are a huge improvement over the expansive pavement and the lights that we have there now. If you go to Hannaford's when it's busy, the cycles just aren't long enough to get out of there. The roundabouts will cure that. From my perspective, I think it'll raise the property values of all the commercial properties up there to have a nice park-like setting like that. I think it'll increase our grand list with respect to the commercial properties. I think that by itself will reduce the tax burden on the residential properties. I think it's a great project. I think that $10 million will be added to the value of the properties up there by cleaning up the act and getting those bike lanes and sidewalks in up there, and the trees particularly.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Please bear with me.
Sir, can I just ask a question about?
You sure may.
Yeah. The question is how assuredly the plantings would be in the project. They look great. Somebody was saying earlier that sometimes plantings tend to disappear from the plans after the budgeting is actually completed. It seems to me that with the improvement of the traffic flow and the safety and the appearance of the roadway, that the greenery would actually be an integral part of the improvement of this approach to town. I'd like an assurance. Can you respond to that?
Yes, I believe in this project that the landscape features there's landscape features for this project would not be counted as an amenity, so the town wouldn't have to pay for these landscape features. We have a new amenity policy, which the town wants special park benches or special anything. Those are participating on the town's end. But as you said, the landscaping components of this project are integral with the project as a whole, and there'll be a significant landscaping effort. This was the preliminary thing that was developed by the original scoping consultant, and I think it looks great, and I would intend to advance the landscaping. It may not be exactly as this is, but make it an integral part of the project.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Mike Bean, I represent Sandries, the Sunoco station. Is the Agency of Transportation subject to Act 250 review?
Yes, we are.
Tracy Slade again, sorry. Just one last question. Have you taken into account the tractor-trailer truck traffic?
Yes.
I mean, going around the first rotary that we have now is what causes most of the accidents. There's people running into the tractor-trailer trucks.
Roundabouts typically, when I first worked on the original roundabout, of course that was always a concern. And when you get into a roundabout with a tractor-trailer, you don't get on the inside of it. You don't. And that's just...
You don't get anywhere near them.
No. And, there's certain, we call them random tendencies or habits that people have. I mean, learning to drive through roundabouts is a learning experience for the community. And I live up in Montpelier, and we have 2 roundabouts that everybody thought were pretty wild ideas to build. And now that we've built them, everybody drives through them all the time, and they work great. So there's a conditioning to a roundabout where drivers need to learn how to use them and learn how to enter them and learn how to maneuver through them. But they've proven to operate very well.
Okay, I'm assuming that, because this is the first time I've heard about this, I'm sorry, they're all 4 of these going to be 2-lane?
Yes. No. Yes. Excuse me.
James
Yes, they all will.
Laban, District 2. Can we plant the trees during Arbor Day?
I don't think that'll be possible under the contract. I don't think the contractor could put all the trees in one day. Yes, please.
Scott Knickerbocker again. I'm just curious as far as funding of the project. I think I've read some percentages somewhere, but I think a lot of this is going to be federal funding. Have those funds, have they been secured? In other words, is this basically all pretty much set to go? Ian, my other question is that...
Let me answer the first one first.
Okay.
We don't have construction money programmed for this project. Program construction funding 2 years out. Okay? This project should take anywhere between 5, 6, 7 years to develop. This is a very significant project. Long, complicated, it's 1.25 miles, full depth reconstruction. But as we approach that time, we worked with the legislature to program those funds for that project. But construction funds for this project aren't programmed at this time.
My other question, my follow-up would be, is the town expected to pick up any of the tapping? Or is this all, again, state and federal?
State and federal. Okay. This is US 5. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Richard Everett, Brattleboro. I was just wondering, I know certain businesses like Baker's, a stationery store here in town, moved out to Putney Road probably because of the need for better parking. And you're talking about it. I don't understand any of the particulars about eliminating parking spaces. Have you, the planners of this so far, have you solicited input from the businesses on Putney Road to see what their opinion of this project is, since they would probably be some of the most directly affected, and some of them have moved out there just because parking in town, where the backup traffic is, from my perspective, is on at rush hour or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, much worse in town than it is out on Putney Road. I've been on Putney Road. If I've been on it once, I've been on it 500 times. I've never been particularly backed up there, but I'm sure other people have. But it's in Brattleboro that the traffic gets backed up. It's just the one main street going through town. So if businesses have gone out there in order to get better parking, have you solicited input from them of whether they're in favor of this or not?
The development of this project, the whole scoping phase of this project, which took place from about 2000, actually it was in more than 2 years, about 2005 to 2008, had one of the most significant public outreach components of it, of any of the projects that we've seen in the Agency of Transportation over the last 20 years. We had a series, we had a local concerns meeting. We had a series of 3 special design workshops on 3 different dates where the public was all notified and invited to come in. Then we had a formal alternatives presentation meeting of the project. And then we presented in front of the town select board and received their approval to proceed. So there was an extensive public outreach component of this project.
And there hasn't been a lot of objection from the business community.
Unfortunately, it's some stakeholders don't show up to every meeting. Okay, but as I said, the public outreach component of this project throughout the entire scoping phase was very extensive.
Okay.
We are addressing, as we approach the preliminary design phase of this project, there are a few parcels of land which we're going to have to pay close attention to and work with the property owners to resolve some of the challenges that we have in front of us. And so it's not as if every single parcel along the corridor is equally impacted. And that's the next phase that we're approaching, that we will be coordinating those efforts. Anybody else? Okay, please bear with me. Comments and questions. Just a reminder, when you mail your comments or ask a question, please identify yourself. Please mail your comments if you have comments. Thank you for your comments. I want to repeat that we are able to take written comments postmarked no later than March 17th, 2013. And there's a form in the handout to facilitate your submission of written comments. March 17th, what's that? Is that St. Patrick's Day?
Yes, it is.
Everybody can remember that. We will review the comments and the record of tonight's session and will report back to the Town of Brattleboro Select Board within 30 days. We will now close the hearing. Thank you for coming and good night.